The market is in extreme fear territory right now. First we saw Palantir deliver a strong earnings report only to fall, and now we see the same thing with Reddit. Let's explore that a bit in this video. So as I'm recording this right after the earnings call, we saw the pre-market and post-market from the day before that the stock was up around 10%, 11, 12, sometimes 6, but just a nice gain ahead of the trading day, only for the stock to fall as the market opened almost immediately. Recovered some ground during the day, only to fall once again, and price to earnings is not really updated in this case, but we can see market cap of 27.5 billion in this case for Reddit. So where does that really put us in relation to the value of the company right now? Well, if we take a quick look at some of the highlights, we can see, for example, daily active users increased by 19%. They are reporting in terms of logged in users right now, but this will change, so it will be logged in and non-logged in from H2 of this year. So slight changes to the reporting to reflect how management makes their decisions. We saw strong growth, and this is very important. This is one of the reasons why, in my opinion, the trailing price to earnings should be higher for this company. We see in Q4 revenue grew by 70%, and for 2025 as a whole we saw 69% growth to 2.2 billion. We can put this in relation to the old numbers that we have on Yahoo Finance. They still have not updated with the full 2025 results, so we see for 2024 the full year 1.3 billion, and the case for this revenue is, it's very profitable. Look at the cost of revenue. So just in 2024, 1.3 billion, and it cost 100 million, so 0.1 billion roughly, 0.12, yeah. Great profitability, and this has not changed materially in this year. Profitability is still extremely strong, and most of it come from advertising in this case. Alright, so as I mentioned, profitability very strong in terms of adjusted EBITDA, in terms of net income. One interesting point that I want to highlight for you guys is this buyback program. So they have authorized a repurchase program of up to $1 billion of stock. How might this affect Reddit? Well, let's take a quick look at what's been going on. We see after the IPO that the share count increased some, likely as some options vested and stuff like this, and we continue to see slow dilution as of today due to the nature of compensation packages for executives and perhaps some key employees as well. So the amount of outstanding shares has slowly been increasing. Sometimes this is due to stock splits. So if you do this analysis yourself at other companies, take it with a grain of salt. Take a look at some stock splits as well. It could be acquisitions. It could be a number of things as to why you see increases. In Reddit's case, they have never had a stock split yet. It's a new company, and in the case of Novo, for example, that I made some videos about recently, they have had 5 stock splits, so just keeping share price lower and increasing access to the capital markets to acquire funding that way. It's just a prudent move to make. So we see this slight increase here due to executive compensation in this case, and with $1 billion in stock buybacks, I mean, how is this going to work for Reddit? How will they be able to continue to grow the business? Capital is required everywhere. Well, in my opinion, with the profitability that they have, with the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, just the bottom line of the business, they can fund buybacks, they can develop, for example, Reddit Max, like they talked about, and shopping ads, and do all of that development that is needed, fight bots on the platform. One thing they mentioned, bots is a huge issue in advertising, but you don't see Google bring it up, you don't see Meta bring it up, and I don't like that the CEO does this. It's negative aura, as you Gen Z guys would say, but it just brings stock price down. We could see in the pre-market when this was mentioned that stock price reacted negatively. That's just not charismatic leadership, in my opinion. But they're doing the right thing in the business, and eventually it's the business results that will guide stock price. And, that's just the nature of the market. But anyways, developing Reddit Max. Does that sound familiar? Well, if you've been doing due diligence on Google and Google stock, you will likely have heard them talk about Performance Max in a lot of the earnings calls. Philip is his name, the guy who talks about this all the time. So it's borrowing branding from that aspect, and I think that this will make it more recognizable for marketers, and perhaps they try it a bit easier to understand what they are getting themselves into, as well as shopping, as well as talking about Reddit search and how they want to develop this using AI answers, or Reddit answers, as the way to go forward. I mean, we see this type of search in Google already. As I Googled Reddit stock split, in this case we get the AI answer, and in Reddit's case this will likely draw from results from posts on the website. So we have some interesting development in terms of the product and service offering, in terms of advertising, the majority of the revenue. We have extremely strong revenue growth, 69%, 69, nice, most of it being just pure profit. It does not take a whole lot to run this. For example, with the Google search engine, you need a bunch of servers that sit and run. And in Reddit's case, we know that they do this via cloud, so having low capex. Perhaps they build some data centers of their own to host in the future. They could use capital on that. But in my opinion, I think that leadership is making a smart decision right now by authorizing a buyback program, buying back the shares. What will happen in this case? Well, I can explain it a little bit, because we always hear buyback, but I realized a lot of us retail investors, we don't know what that means really, but in terms of buyback, it just means that they are purchasing shares in the open market. Perhaps they do some sort of block deal with the institution to buy back a block. That just means a large amount of shares, and then when Reddit buy these shares, they just simply destroy them. All right, so we will see in macro trends here that the amount of outstanding shares will go down as a result of a successful buyback program. And this matters because of simple financial measurements like earnings per share. How profitable is Reddit? Well, if there's fewer shares outstanding and profit continues to grow, well, then each share just is entitled to a larger share of the business's profit. So each share that we as retail investors own, in this case, just gives us a larger ownership claim to those profits. So that's why buyback makes sense. It's a way to push up share price in this case. Supply and demand, as simple as that. And this can be utilized at will, basically, right now, using funds from operation. And I think that it's a prudent move to do that right now and start buying back shares at these levels. Definitely a good entry point, in my opinion. I've bought Reddit shares at lower prices, and I've bought Reddit shares at higher prices. And very likely, as soon as I'm done with the road to 100,000 challenge, where I take a portfolio from 0 to 100k buying dividend shares, well, then I will look at growth stocks again. and then buying more Reddit shares is high on that agenda. Alright, that's been it for this video, and as always, hope you guys make a ton of money, whatever investments you decide to make. Take care now, bye bye.